Today, Monday, is Daf Tezvov. We're just continuing to discuss, based on our Mishnah, what is the status of Halacha. Halacha is considered an avodah or not an avodah. We had a discussion if a Yisrael does the Halacha, is it still kosher? And the last thing we learned about was Halacha doesn't mean that you have to physically move your body and walk with the blood, or is it enough that if your hand moves? Because just like in Hilchas Shabbos, we find that your hand moving is considered halacha. You're standing inside the house, you're moving your hand back and forth. So what about when it comes to halacha in the Avodah? Is it sufficient for a kohen to stand in one place and just move his hand? And we brought an ayah from Korban Pesach, and all the kohanim were lined up, and they transferred the bucket to go to the mizbeach, but that proves nothing, because the Gemara says maybe each kohen had to move an inch. They had to move, a little bit, so there was the body moved as well. So there's no raya from Pesach. So the last thing we learned was, which we're going to revisit. The last thing we learned was regarding, we're talking about halacha, the avodah of halacha, whether you have to physically move or just if your hand is moving. So the last thing we learned was, it says if a kohen stood there who makabel the blood and he gave it to a Yisrael, he gave it to somebody's pasuk, gave it to Yisrael, and then it says that this Yisrael has to, the way we understood, has to give it back to the kohen, and the kohen takes it to the mizbech. So what do we see from that? The fact that it gives it back to the kohen sounds like that nothing. It's not halacha, because if halacha standing in one place and moving my hand is considered halacha, then when I put it in the Yisrael's hand, this kohen did the halacha. Then why you have to give it back? Let another kohen take it from the Yisrael and continue going towards the mizbeach. The fact that you have to give it back to the original kohen means that section that moved from the kohen to this Yisrael was not part of the halacha. So the Gemara says, who told you have to give it back? It says you take it from him. You decided he's going reverse. Maybe take from him means you go forward, because the halacha that you give that moving your hand is considered halacha. No raya one way or another, but the Gemara brings the name of Rabbi Yechanan that halacha you have to move your body. Halacha shaloi beregel lo yishma halacha. You have to move your body as well. So now the Gemara asks the question. Okay, let's say that's we're up the top of the page. The Gemara starts off with a new question. Let's say you did halacha just by moving your hand. You're telling me it's not halacha. Can you fix it up? Can you fix it up and take it back and start again? Or that's it, you passed it. That's it. Once you did the halacha in an incorrect way, because you moved your hand, you used to know one place, and you put it down somewhere, you gave it to Yisrael, you ruined it, and you can't fix it up. But the Gemara, top of the page of Tezvav, can you fix it up or can't you fix it up? Bottom line. Toshma coming here. Toshma kibel hakosher. This is the same Mishnah we just learned before. We learned yesterday. Kibel hakosher. A kohen received all the blood from the behemoth, and then Vinos and Lipsol, the apostle, he gave it to somebody. A kohen who was drunk, or he gave it to Yisrael. What does it say? Yachzel kosher. You give it back to the kosher, right? So he did. Now he did a halacha without moving. So the halacha wasn't good. Now we learned there's two ways. We actually said there's two ways to learn pshat. Forget what Rabbi Yechanan said before. There's two ways to learn pshat. One way is when it goes back, and one way it goes forward. If it goes forward, that means you learn that halacha shaloi beregel is a good halacha. So the kohen put it in the Eid's hand. That was good. And now another kohen is in front of him, takes it from there and moves on forward. That's one we're learning. The other learning is no, halacha shaloi beregel is not a good halacha. Therefore, yachzeh means you got to take it back and go on. So the we see from here the word yachzeh, taking it back, that you just fixed it up. Because if halacha shaloi beregel is not good halacha, then fafalin. What's the point of taking it back? So you want to show this? Toshma.
I don't know what's the gap between the
time-wise. There's no time limit.
So if he doesn't count as anything, you give it to the straw.
But he did a pula. He did a ma'isa of halacha, but the wrong way, because you had to move your feet. But you put it down. You let go. You put it on, let go. We're talking about you let it go into Yisrael's hand. If halacha without moving is no good, that means he did something possible. The question: can you fix it up? Is the pshat is that the question: is it possible, or is it you just didn't do the halacha yet? So you can just recalibrate, start again. Or you say no, there's a ma'isa psul and that's it, finished. So it's like this. You are touching it, but it's like as long as it's tired, but he can't do any avoidance. You get chiv misa for shchita, not shchita. You get chiv misa for zrika. The other one is only a lap. You don't get misa because we learned in Yuma it has to be avoid tama, avoid that completes. Yeah. Says the Gemara. Toshma, keep the kosher also l'psul yachzer the kosher. Give it back to the kosher. Now, nihinami. True, we said before the yachzer hakosher kablanu. We learned one pshat is that what that we learned another pshat. Remember that the halach is good without, and therefore yachzer means going forward. True. But in other words, but if you learn the other way pshat, that is talking about you have to go backwards. So what helps giving it back? If you hold it to go backwards because halacha shaloi beregel is not considered halacha, then what does it help giving it back? It's foul. You ruined it. So doesn't that prove that you could fix it up? And therefore, if you learn that it wasn't a good halacha because you just moved your hand without your feet, then we can say yes, start it again, restart, send it back, and restart. Says the Gemara, no raya. You know why? Me Sovrit, you thought halacha is only if you go in the direction of the mizbech. You bring it towards, and then the question is whether you have to move moving your hands good enough for your feet. But if you go the other way, there's nothing happened because there's no halach. Halacha means bringing it to the base of to the mizbeach. So Timothy says again, no, you know why? Me savre the koyzor gavoy. Who told you that this Yisrael is standing between the koyin and the mizbech, and he's going forward inside? Lloyd the koyzor beray. Maybe the zor is standing behind. That's why you can fix it up because then definitely nothing happened. There was no halach at all. No raya one way or another. Itma, nevertheless, the Gemara says, Omar Ula. Ula said, Omar Rabbi Yechon, Rabbi Yechon. We had before Ula Rabbi Yechon who said that if you go with just moving your hands is not a good halacha. Now we go a step further. Halacha shalei beregel psula. Apostle means that's it. You ruined it. That's a new version of Ula. A step higher than before. Before he said you were in Yaitza halacha. Now he's saying, it's not called halacha. Now he's saying that and that you can fix up. Now you're saying it's possible. That's it. You did a Maisa of Psul and over.
See with his leg first.
You don't have to work together. I mean, it doesn't matter like first or hand first, but it's positive. Normally, what they would do is the kohen who received the blood would go and towards the mizbech. For whatever reason, he gave it to somebody else. No, there's no rule again.
So we might have come in if the kohen is makabel the dam, and then he walks through the bailim and then goes around like one big halacha. Right?
We say, well, we had in the Mishnah, if it's a halacha that was unnecessary, then according to Reb Shimon, it's not called halacha. If you stand in the belt to walk around, everyone holds it's not halacha. Halacha is only going towards the mizbech. That's halacha. Bringing it close, v'hikriv. Remember, we learned halacha from v'hikriv. You got to bring it close, and then we learned Kabbalah from there as well.
You could be heading towards the mizbech, but not direct.
I guess you have to go directly to the mizbech. Otherwise, if you're going to the side, that part is not halacha. That section. And so they gave it to the machshava. If you have a machshava of bad during a part which is not halacha, it doesn't ruin it. Depending on what the answer of Nachman's question, it says like this. It says, Nishbach min hakli ala ritzba. Okay, you collected the blood from the neck of the animal, and then suddenly it tipped, and the blood fell on the ground. And then you gather it together, kosher is kosher. Now remember, when the blood falls on the ground, it splatters. Some of the blood is going out towards the mizbech. That blood going towards the mizbech is the halacha, which is not kosher. There's no kohen involved there at all, so it's not kosher. And yet it says you can collect all the blood and use it. What does that prove? You can fix it up. Even if something went wrong, you can fix it up.
This is the blood of this.
No, you're standing right there. It's clean. It's clean. Remember, by Pesach, they cleaned it a few times.
The reason they cleaned it is because there's flush.
I know. Exactly. It had it till the knees.
That's what I'm saying. So how do you know which blood it is? It must be first thing in the morning or something.
Exactly. Or a very quiet day. He told me, you know what? All the blood went away from the mizbech. Right, Gemara. What? What are you talking about? Give me hechetim, so the blood falls down straight, splatters everywhere, but all decided to move the other direction away from the mizbech. So anyway, why not? Maybe Makkah Midran, it's a slope, even though it was flat ground and it was 1 year there was a slope. Or he buys a beguma, there was a pothole there, a sinkhole or something, and all the blood collected in one place, it didn't move forward. Or he buys a besmicha, very thick blood, it wasn't flowing. Right? And the wind's going in one direction, okay? Okay, fourth answer.
So
Yeah.
I don't understand how
Maybe it's one, one of the tiles went up a little bit, and with Fedi Gemara, the Ichel Tanel Hashmini Kol Hani. So the Tana told you or didn't hear something which is mamish never going to happen. There's no holes in the Azara. There was none of these things. Boy Nachmet at the Tani. So there it makes a contrast. If it fell on the if it fell if from the keli on the floor, collect the blood and use it. But if it fell directly from the neck, before you had a chance to collect it with the keli, the blood went straight down to the gush to the ground. You cannot collect it. That's what the Mishnah says here. Even if you collected in the keli, but if any of the blood went in the direction towards the mizbeach, you can't fix it. Why introduce a new idea? Why did it say contrast that? If it fell on the ground or something you collected apostle, live like b'diday. Why did it make a difference within itself? If it went away from the mizbeach, then you collect the blood. Went towards the apostle. So we repudiate the second din of Ula Rabbi Yechon that it's possible. We say we have a problem with that. So we stick with the first din of him that it's not halacha, but nothing happens. So therefore you can recalibrate. Itmar. Now we learn. So we're continuing the discussion. If halacha shalei b'regel, last time we learned Rabbi Yechon paskin that it's not considered halacha. Now the Gemara wants to say maybe this is the machlekes not Mishnah Rab Shimon Chachamim. Rab Shimon says that halacha is not really considered an avodah. That halacha, if you have a bad machshava, does not passel the animal. The Chachamim say it does. So l'chayda, that's the machlekes. Itmar halacha shalei b'regel. Let's say you went without just move your hand. The machlekes Rab Shimon Rabban. What according to, as the will explain. So according to Rab Shimon, the whole that halacha is not really an avodah. So even should not make no difference like no regel, not regel. And according to Chachamim, the halacha is avodah. Then it has to be with regel. Says the Gemara as follows. And the Gemara explains. Says the Gemara. The Gemara says, so Rav Shimon holds that halach is not an avodah, and therefore it doesn't matter the whole thing, and the Chum holds an avodah. So b'halacha, right in the Gemara like this. B'halacha, Rab, see if let's say you shechted far away from the mizbeach, so you have to walk to the mizbeach to bring the blood. You have no breda. Then the kuliyam lepliki the psula. Everyone holds it's an avodah. You have no breda. You have no breda. It's an avodah. So even if Shimon is made, then halacha is an avodah. Deeply when they're arguing b'halacha zutrasi, that you're standing right next to the mizbeach, and all you have to do is move your hand. What is move your hand? And that's a machlekes. So therefore, Rab Shimon holds it's not an avodah because he holds moving the hand he holds moving the hand is nothing. Therefore, it's not really an avodah, and that's why he holds a lot of avodah. Chacham hold that moving hand is just like walking, and therefore it's an avodah. That's machlekes. Machkol marava. They laughed at him. Yesterday we had an expression megadif, which is a lot worse. Here they just laughed. Here they were upset. Why did they laugh? Because it doesn't make sense. Take a chatos ha'oiv. Chatos ha'oiv. So there's different ways of how do you sprinkle the blood in the mizbeach. Either you take a keli of blood and you throw it in the mizbeach, or you take your finger and you dip it in, or you take and you splatter it in the mizbeach, and then there's chatos ha'oiv. Chatos ha'oiv. You take the actual bird, and you have to cut it, and you stand right next to the mizbeach, and you go up and down with your hand, and you squeeze. You squeeze the neck, and the blood goes screaming on the mizbeach. So this movement of going up and down, because you're standing right next to the mizbeach, is l'chayda the halacha. You bring it close to the thing, up and down. That's halacha. Now you're telling me that according to Rab Shimon, that halacha that's just the hand is not halacha. So according to him, how come how can you ever have a psula machshava by chatas oiv? By an animal, if you did it far away from the mizbeach, that distance that you had to cover, that's halacha. And therefore, if you had a machshava that's shalei l'shmai, whatever it is, it ruins the carbon. Because we had in the Mishnah before, every single one of the avodas ruins the carbon. But by chatas or eif, according to Shimon, how is it shaykh? But why? If you thought about it before any blood came out, no, before you were standing right and holding it, then it's not that avodah of halacha. Is lo klumu. The bus is nothing happened because you're standing there moving the bird up and down, but moving your hand is nothing. The basa did dafik dam, and once the blood came out, you did your mitzvah. No, you did your mitzvah zrika. Once the blood splattered on the mizbeach, you already did, and you already did your avodah. Once you do your avodah, there's no longer any more. It's over. What machshav we don't care about. Says the Gemara. My kusha. What's the question? Dilma Mid the porish va'ad the motul mizbech. You think, okay, the question is as follows. When it comes to the machshavas, while you're doing this act, let's say, of spraying, is the machshava, Kolzman, you're related to the zrika? Or the machshava is, Kolzman, the zrika is taking place. If you have a machshava, a pigla, whatever it is, or shalei l'shmai, it ruins it. And or shina bailim. What do you mean? Because we had in Hilchos Shabbos zorak chayts. You throw the chayts as soon as it left your hand, and then whatever happens afterwards, it's as if it all happened the moment you threw it. We had Baba Kama and the second page. It's as if you threw it, right? Because everything, your whole relationship happened that moment. So when it comes to Zika Bahid, we look at it that moment. So the moment the blood left the thing, I'm finished. As far as I'm concerned, Zika is over. So my machshava, which is me, doesn't matter anymore. So we have a problem. But we have a special pasuk when it comes to Zika. It's not when you're yachas, it's when it lands on the Mizbech. Or it starts from you, but it goes to the Mizbech. And therefore, true, you're no longer doing the halacha, now you're doing Zika, but that's when your machshav is. And even though you're no longer involved, the blood already left the bird, it's still considered Zika that you're involved in. And as we have a skis a kasuv, and therefore your machshav happened. There's no problem going to Shimon. So the Gemara, who else would ask except Rabbi Yirmiyah? Rabbi Yirmiyah asked the following question of Zayda. Listen to this: you were sprinkling the blood. V'nikta yoda, and your hand suddenly got chopped off the moment it left your hand before it landed on the mizbech. Suddenly a guillotine or something happened, then it chopped your hand off, amputated your hand. Shemaza, before it reached the top of the mizbech or right on top of it. Mahu. Do we look at it the moment that it left your hand, or do we look at it when it landed on the mizbech? But Amalei said to him, Psula, it is possible. Why is it possible? Because it's still, the zrika is still taking place till it lands. My timer, because it says a kosov. It says in the pasuk, he's a v'nasan. When does the hazah end? Nasan, when it lands on the mizbeach. So the whole time, it's like the Gemara makes a childi of whether you're ma'ivir dal damas or whether you're zoyrik dal, you're zoyrik. That ma'ivir calls man, you're walking every single second you're doing the veda. Zoyrik, it all happened the moment you left. So we thought that that hazah should be like zrika. The Gemara said no. It says because the Torah says the he's a v'nasan. It's the entire time that it's happening. Therefore, so the same thing here. No problem. So now, so therefore, it's not a kasha what you're asking. Why machkala? So came along and Papa Rabban Yeshua and said, "No, that wasn't what bothered them. That's not what bothered them with this word that you said. You wanted to say that the machlekes of Reb Shimon Chacham is not when you shechted far away from the mizbech. Everyone agrees. You have no breda. Of course, halach is an avodah. The argument is halach is lutrasa. You're standing right there, just your hand moving back and forth. What's that considered? That's how you learn. Says the Papa, can't be. Look at our Mishnah. Our Mishnah, he gives us svara. What's the svara in the Mishnah? Look at our Mishnah. Clearly, they're arguing even you're far away, because Shimon said you don't have to be far away. You could have stood right next to Mizbeach. You decided to shech far away, so doesn't make it into a malacha, into an avodah. So in other words, dafka the machlekes is when you're far away. So this like this. Ella b'halacha zutasi kuliam lepligi big machlekes in the shiny whether it's loy pasla or pasla. Everyone agrees, because whichever you want to learn, your hand alone. Either your hand alone, loy pasla, which is different than Rabbi Yechon before. That's what I mean. It's maybe it's even avodah, or pasla. Ki pligi, where they're arguing by halacha, they're arguing dafka when you're far away, but you didn't have to do it. And that's the machlekes. So therefore, it has nothing to do with halacha just biyad. Says the Gemara. What about the following case? Halicha zor. A Yisrael did the halacha. From the keli, Yisrael took the blood, whatever it is, and he walked to the mizbech. Then the hechzirei koyin, he brought it back, and koyin v'chazer b'halicha. Yisrael took it, he brought it back, and the koyin then took it and brought it. Do we look at the final halacha of remedy the situation, and now a koyin actually brought it to the mizbech, or do we say the first guy already ruined it and fafal? One says kosher, one says pasul. What do you machlekes? Ma'asav and efshel tkuna. The Yisrael Taka took it, but he brought it back. The second person, the kohen, brought it. He fixed it all up because it's the final delivery to the mizbeach that counts. We don't care what happened before. It's the final. This is the word. It's the final delivery that counts. It's a kohen. No, it's the one who did it chatchila from the keli who took it, and the first guy. That's the hilacha. And you can't fix it up. Okay, so following case. What about halicha kohen? The first guy who took it to the mizbeach was a kohen. And then it was brought back, and Yisrael not brought the second time. Do we look at the final bringing to Mizbeach, or do we look at the initial? Well, exactly the opposite before. The David Machshir one who said before that is kosher. Why? Because we look at the final delivery. Well, who did the final delivery here? Yisrael. So it's possible. Here it'll be possible. The David place, the ones that is possible before, could be look at the first delivery and there was Yisrael. Well, here Machshir, because the Kohen did it. It's the first one who brought the blood. Rabbi said I disagree with it totally. After the David place, everyone will agree here it's possible. You know why? My time would turn to the fact is we need to sprinkle the blood. And the only way to sprinkle blood is to bring it back to his bed. That's halacha. I don't care who's first, second. The second one is Yisrael. It ruins the whole thing. You have to bring it forward. So this is what Rabbi Yimi. It's very difficult to imagine this is Rabbi Yimi speaking to Rabbi Ashi unless this is a different Rabbi Yimi altogether. 1 second. This is a gears here. It says Ravina. Okay. Amalei Ravina or different Rabbi Yimi Ravashi. Hachi Amar Rabbi Yimi Medifta. This is what Rabbi Yimi Medifta said. Hot Sadach Lam Tuya. This vort that you did something which is reckless. You didn't have to do it. You took the blood, you brought it back there. But if now it has to be brought to Mizbech, that's an avodah. And that is a machlekes Rabbi Lezer Rabban. If you remember the end of the Mishnah, we had another opinion called Rabbi Lezer. And he said it depends on which case it is, if you need it or if you don't need it. And we thought we learned Pashup Pshat. When the Pashup Pshat in the Mishnah is, it's a sort of a pshara between his father, this is Rabbi Lezer actually, between his father and the Chachamim. Rabbi Shimon holds, halach is never avodah. The Chachamim hold halach is always avodah, and he says it depends. If it was necessary, it's avodah, and if it's not necessary, it's not an avodah. So this is machleki Rabbi Lezer Rabbanan. Now we learned Rabbi Lezer says hamahalach b'makom shetzarich lahalach. If you go where you have to, the machshava b'selas, it's an avodah. You machshava pasels. Makom she'ein tzarich lahalach. We don't need to a machshava b'selas. So this is what you said tzarich lamtui. True, a kohen did it first, but then it was taken back, and now a Yisrael has to do it. The fact is now it has to be done. Tzarich lamtui. The fact is now it's too far from his berach. How are you going to sprinkle it? So then it's called tzarich lamtui, and according to Rabbi Lezer, that's considered an avodah. So the Gemara, Rabbi says, Rabbi, Hakol Moidi, everyone says, Rabbi, everyone is Moidi. Kibloi b'chutz. So now he looks like this. Everyone is Moidi. If you receive the blood far away, chutz, the Rashi says, does not mean outside the base of Mikdash. It means inside the Zodah, but far away. You were far away from the Mizbeach. V'chnisi b'fnim, you brought to the Mizbeach. There's no machlekes. You have no breda. You have no breda. You have to do it. What about kiblei b'fnim? You receive the blood right by the mizbeach, and for no reason, you carry the blood away from the mizbeach. Everyone agrees. It's totally unnecessary. So that leg that you bring it back now to the mizbeach is not called an avodah. If you have a bad machshava, a machshava psul during the second trip, doesn't matter. So what's the machlekes? Loi nechelku. The whole machlekes is kishehechnisai. You brought it in the chazar v'haitzia. You brought it in and you took it back out. And you took it back out. We're talking about it here in the middle case here is you took it to the mizbech and you took it out. We're not talking about that you brought it back in again. We're talking about now the leg that you took it from the mizbech and you v'haitzia l'chutz. That leg, according to everybody, is not halacha. What are you doing it for? We're not talking about the leg bringing it back. Thinking about now, what about bringing it back in this case? And now you bring it back. One hold, you have no bread. Now it doesn't matter why it was taken out. Now you have to bring it back. So therefore, that's considered halacha. No, that is this was totally unnecessary. Why you bring out in the first place? Therefore, that's not called avodah halacha, and there's no machshava psul there. That's what he wants to say. Abai says to Rabbi, I don't understand. I'm fair, but I say faket. And Rabbi Lezer says yes. Lezer, I'm a halach. Mokim shetzor lahalach. If you do halacha, we have to machshava peselas. Ketzad, for example, kiblei bechutz. You receive the blood far away mizbeach. V'chnisa lefnim brought mizbeach. Zevi hilach shetzor lahalach. You have no bread. You have to bring it in. What about kiblei befnim? You makabel the blood inside, and you took it outside. That leg from the mizbeach outside, say hilush ain't our leg. Everyone agrees this is totally unnecessary. It's not called hiluch. Is masher from here? Only that's ain't tzarich, is not called hilach. But now then afterwards, okay, whatever the reason is you brought it out, you have to bring it back. Hilush tzarich that's l'chayda a halacha klor. That even whole that is considered now. We don't look at the entire picture. We look right now. It has to be brought back. And Abelaz says made to the chachamim that is considered avodah. Everyone agrees it's an avodah. Amalei, so the Rabbi said, Tanya. It's a state. Let's learn Tanya. So anyway, that's what it says here. Hadin Allah kol hazvachim. Okay, now the next Mishnah goes with the next avodah is Kabbalah. We go through Zevachim every single avodah and we break it down. So next avodah is Kabbalah of the dam. Says the Mishnah, who could be Makabal the dam? So Shchita Ksheila Bezor, we'll have the first Mishnah Chulin, Ksheila Ben Nosha, everybody can shech. And we had yesterday's Gemara that it's not a Shchita is not an avodah. We had a beautiful pshat from Yaakov Molinish. The reason why it's not an avodah is why is Shchita not an avodah? The Chayda is critical. Without Shchita, you can't bring a carbon. So he learned, not like Rashi, he learned the pshat not avodah is because it's not a din in kachim. A kosher, you want to eat an animal, you have to shecht. So what does that prove? That Shchita is a din in kashrus rather than in kachim. That's why it's not an avodah. It's a mitzvah of Zevachim. Or it's a mitzvah. What zvicha is, but it's a mitzvah in zvicha in kachur of the animal, not in the avodah of the kachur of the animal. That's why shchita lav avodah. I paraduma. That's exesa kosov. Says the Mishnah. So kol azvach kibul dam and zor. If a yisrael accepted it, we know that kabbalah and onwards it has to be done by a kohen. If a zor took it, an oinen, somebody who's an oinen after one of his close relatives, or a tvul yoim, he was tamei and he went to the mikveh, but he has to wait. He's a tvul yoim, he has to wait till sunset. Let's say you touch a mace or a shed, whatever it is. Or mechusa kippurim, someone who's chayiv a carbon as well to finish off. Not only has to have tefillah, not only has to wait Hashem, but just has to bring kabbanas in the morning. Like a mitzvah has to bring kabbanas. So right now he's a stage called mechusa kippurim. None of them are qualified to work in the base of English at this state. Or mechusa begadim, he's not wearing all the clothes. Kain head, not wearing all the clothes. And we had yesterday, through the clay shutters by a kohen is the clothes that he wears. He didn't wash his hands from the kiyah. Odel, somebody was an odel. He was gemalet because his brothers died, so he's not allowed to mala. Or a tamei, or he was tamei. Yoshev sitting. It says lamed l'shodesh. You have to stand, and he was sitting. Oimid al gabe kalim al gabe behema. He is standing. This is not directly on the ground, but there's something in between, either on vessels or a behema. We learned dinim and davening from all this. The Tur goes through all of them. It's like Aleph, I think it is. Al gabe ragle chavedi, standing on the foot of your friend. In all of these, posel is posel, because if that you didn't do the avodah correctly. Kibel b'smoil. What about you accepted it in your left hand? Posel. It posels it. And Abshimon machshir. We'll discuss it later in the Gemara, because lefty is absurd by, as we know, by kohenim. Let's first analyze Zor Minol. How do you know that a Yisrael cannot be involved in the Kabbalah of the blood? The Tanu Leiber said this on the pasuk, Daber El Adar, and you speak to Adam Abanav and his children Leimer, and then it says the Yinozru, they should separate Mekotche Bnei Yisrael. They should separate from the Kotchim of Bnei Yisrael. When Bnei Yisrael, whose Kotchim shouldn't they be separated from? Bnei Yisrael, the Mutimai, what's it counting Mayit? Right, but so we touch two things. First, it says it breaks up Dabra on the bottom. Then it says V'nozer Kachim Souls. We learn from there that what that and the next one it says Ashikim Kodarachim. So therefore, we darshan that that it's only a kohen who can do these avodas. Now, what do you mean? If it says V'nozer Kachim Souls sounds like from Bnei Yisrael you should separate, but for someone else you don't have to worry about it if it's tamei. What are we talking about here? Bnei Yisrael Mutimai. What are we coming to exclude? That if a woman brings a carbon, we don't care that if you're tamei to bring the carbon. Why? Carbon noshim betumah. Why? You can bring the carbon of women if you're tamei. Why? If a guy brings a carbon, the kohen can bring it tamei. So the Gemara says, It doesn't make sense either. We say that if, let's say, the blood becomes tummy by Yisrael, we say the tzitz is maratze, but a carbon of a goy. The tzitz is not maratze, which means tum is a big deal by a goy, much worse than by a yid. And you're telling me that the kohen can be tummy when he does the carbon of a goy? What the kohen is tummy, he can bring it. The Yenazru mikatcha b'nei Yisrael. You should distance yourself the katcha b'nei Yisrael from all kachim. The loy yechalalu, and we dash as if the word is a comma after the word mikatcha, and you put together b'nei Yisrael v'lo yechalalu. We don't have b'nei Yisrael involved in the avodah because that would be mechalal. That would passel the avodah. No, if b'nei Yisrael is mekabel the blood, it will ruin it. That's how we dash it. Then he learns asay kavachayim. We learn a kavachayim pasha from Balmum. And that is as follows: Ma balmum, balmo. Koyin is a balmum. Sha'oichel, he has every right to eat kachim. Yet im avad chilel, because by a balmum, if he does avoid, he actually ruins the carbon. So lechalas kachim. That means he's mechalit. Azara Yisrael. She'einu oichel. Yisrael is not allowed to eat kachim. Einu din surely she'im avad. If he went ahead and did avoid the midrash, chilel, he ruined it. Says he wanted one second. It's not a good kabbalah chayim. Mal balmum. When it comes to balmum, she came also by karav kemakiv. This sudden of having a defect, a mum, doesn't make a difference if the balmum is the kohen himself or the animal, right? Whether the makiv is or the karav, or the thing you're bringing up. Either one, a mum is possible. Mashenkin, when it comes to a Yisro, there's nothing wrong with the animal, just himself. Who said that it passels the animal? So you a tummy yichich. There's no such thing as tummy by a living animal, dead animal tummy. But there's no such thing as living tummy of a animal. Yet if a kohen is tummy, he passes the carbon. So we see it doesn't matter whether the animal itself is a problem or not a problem. If there's a problem with the person doing it, that passes the carbon. So therefore, Yisrael is doing the avodah, passes the carbon. Name, but Malat Tomei came metame. A Tomei is different because he's metame others. So it's a very strong thing. His mum doesn't stay with himself; he's tame others, and so on. Somebody said no about so, but Yisrael doesn't transfer his psul to anybody else. So you know what I mean? But Balmum nechiach. A Balmum doesn't transfer his mum to anyone else, and yet he ruins the carbon. The Chazon go back and forth, back and forth. The Chumra here is not shared by the other one, and the Chumra by the other one is not shared over here. So between Tamei and Balmum, what's the common denominator? Shumuz Harin. That what they were told that they're not allowed to do the avodah, and the imam and they did do the avodah, they ruined the animal. So the thing about Yisrael, Shumuzer, Yisrael is not allowed to work in the Beis Hamikdash, and the imam and if he did avodah, he ruins it. You will stop availability tomorrow, Mitzvah Hashem.